Folks, we're talking now in the year 1946 in the fall. I'm finishing up my summer work as a waitress at the Equinox House in Manchester, Vermont. One thing that I didn't tell you too is that Crawford, the young man I would see quite often, and who came from an upper class family, drove his dad's Lincoln. His last name was Lincoln, and he drove his dad's Lincoln up to Manchester, New Hampshire. Hold it. That's our clock. I think it's saying it's noon, our temperature clock, and the temperature is always 78 degrees here. And he drove the Lincoln up to Manchester, and that night, after dinner was served and I was through work, we left for Bolton Landing. Now, you know, I had no idea what the distance was. I was just doing whatever Crawford thought was entertaining. Lake George, from Manchester, New Hampshire, and we thought it would be a couple of hours. We drove all night. We didn't get to Bolton Landing until 5 o'clock in the morning. And we were going there to see Bill Staples. And Bill Staples was one of the people who ran for the class president when Glendora had the landslide and defeated two gentlemen for the class presidency of the class of 1946. Can you imagine that? So we could see Bill Staples maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes and 15, and we had to start back because Glendora had to serve breakfast. She had to be there for breakfast back at the hotel. Crazy, dumb things. 17, 18 years old. And so it was very nice that American International College gave Glendora a full scholarship. And you know how much a full scholarship was? $300 a semester. What? Yes, that's what it cost. Only $300 a semester. An interesting scene, folks. It was 1946. The veterans were given the GI Bill of Rights. After their horrible experience in the war, they came home and the government gave them the GI Bill of Rights, which was a college education. The government paid for the tuition, the government paid for the books, and I believe the government gave them $21 a month. Is that right? And here are all these older people who have been through maturing experiences, to say the least. And the class was huge, 500. The class the year before was maybe 100. But this veterans coming in made it 500. And you had to take 4 required courses and 1 elective. Required courses: psychology, English, biology, and I think the arts. And then I had 1 elective, and I think maybe it might have been Spanish, which I really wasn't interested in, and I'm still not interested in today. And somebody asked me to write to a student in South America. He wanted a pen pal in the United States. So being kind-hearted, I volunteered to write to him. And he wanted me to describe American International College, and I made disparaging remarks about it. You know, a freshman is what I was. And I got a notice from the president of the college to report to the president's office. I went over there to report to the president's office, not knowing what it was about, and there was a furor going on in the office. All kinds of commotion all of a sudden. And the secretary said, "You can go now." I think the president was about to say, "You don't deserve a scholarship to American International College," saying what you did about it in that letter. I think that's what it was about. But before the president of the college could do anything about it, the president was dismissed. And that's what all the furor was. The people didn't like the president because he was too autocratic. And they let him go. His name was Gilman, Dr. Gilman, and he was replaced by Admiral Hines, an admiral from the U.S. Navy. Any notes that you can give me, dear friend?
The good humor man.
Say again.
Good humor man.
I didn't hear you.
Was he an ice cream man? The good humor man?
Oh, the good humor man. A student there named Ed Henry took an interest in me. And we went to a few places together. And he would buy me an ice cream on a stick. And it was the good humor ice cream. And it was the almond. What would they call it? It was all crumbly almond. It was delicious. And what else, honey?
Jean Fillion.
Oh, yes, Jean Fillion. She was a veteran. She was in the waves. She didn't leave the United States, but she enabled men to leave the United States, to go to the front. She and her girlfriend joined the waves. And Jean is one of these people you meet 1 out of 50. Sweet, generous, altruistic, kind, sociable, congenial. And there was Marlene Unger, who came from Austria, from a family with a great deal of wealth, but they were Jewish and just escaped from Austria from Hitler. So they were starting a new life.
Card parties?
What was that, please?
Card parties?
Oh, yes, my mother loved to play cards. And I was sympathetic with her and could feel her lonesomeness. And so I would gather my friends together quite often, maybe once a week, and we would play canasta. And she just enjoyed that so much. And who else, honey?
Pat McCarthy?
Yes, Pat McCarthy. He fell in love with a woman who was from the South and who had married a man up here in Springfield, and he was in construction, and he was making a great deal of money. He would buy houses, he would tear them down and build new houses and make a whole lot of money. And Pat McCarthy wouldn't let anybody get near this beautiful young Southerner because she belonged to him, and that was it. And she was smart, though. I had the nearly perfect average, 3.7, and she was right up there with me. She was behind me. Now, you see, here I am, a graduate of Classical High School, the premium education forum. And here are these GIs who haven't had any more than a high school education, and not a very good one at that. Nothing like classical. And everything that the professors were teaching the GIs, I knew already. I'd known it for years because I had such good training at classical. So I was kind of bored with the 5 subjects, and the next year I took 6 subjects every semester. And I decided to major in English in the name of Edwin Smith. And since that wasn't enough, and since I didn't have enough to do, I took on a double major, which was psychology. And I ended up with not only 120 credits, but something like 150 or something like that. And the average was very high, 3.7, and all of the veterans call me brain. In high school, I was a class clown, but in college, I was the brain. Did I tell you we took biology? And that was Dr. Gedare, very entertaining instructor. He came up from Commerce High School, and he taught us that a PhD stood for Plowed Higher and Deeper. Anything else in the freshman year, dear?
Did you also take economics and sociology?
Yes, but I think that was in the sophomore year.
Oh.
That was required. A course in sociology and a course in economics and another course in psychology, I think. And certainly another one in English.
Okay, that's everything on the list for freshman year.
So we're going to the year 1947 as sophomore?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything notable there?
In your sophomore year, building a new library?
Oh, yeah, they built a brand new library on the campus. And they built another building on the campus and another building on the campus. It was really springing up like a little city. Anything else in the sophomore year?
Sadie Hawkins Day?
Oh, Sadie Hawkins Day. That's when the girls were entitled to go out and nab a husband, a boyfriend. And that was a lot of fun. It came from the little Abner comic strip. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
No.
Friend?
I don't.
Okay, I bet you don't either. All righty.
And you took psychology, English, and science?
Thank you.
Mr. Duffy?
Oh, Mr. Duffy, what a sweetheart. He was Irish, he was Roman Catholic. He was not a PhD, but he was on his way to be one, and he taught us literature. And there I did have something new. I read books that I hadn't read in college, in the high school. Gulliver's Travels, very good names in English literature. That was pretty good. Any other notes on that?
Doris Fournier?
Yes, Doris Fournier. In high school, we were all seated alphabetically, and Fournier, being next to Folsom, she not only went to the same high school I went to, she went to the same college I went to. Anybody else?
Ed Henry?
Ed Henry, yes, I told you about him. He bought me the ice cream on a stick. And he could always find a job. He was a veteran, but he could always find a job. He worked for Planters Peanuts, and he worked for a Coca-Cola company. He could always get a job. And in those days, everybody could get a job. Money was everywhere.
Spanish?
Don Quixote. We were reading Don Quixote in Spanish.
Dormitories?
They had dormitories. Marlene lived in the dormitory.
Card games?
Would you say that again, please?
Card games?
Yeah, the card games with my mother. I tried to keep those going for her. I believe on the year between freshman and sophomore that I went to work again for another summer at the Atlantic House, Scarborough Beach, just south of Portland, as a waitress. I think I was up there second year, and I think that's when I was in college.
Okay, 316 Union Street.
Oh, what a great house. What a wonderful house. This was typical of the houses that my mother could always find to rent. You walked in and there was a hallway, and on the right was a parlor, and on the left was a sitting room, and behind the sitting room was another spare room just as big as the sitting room, and then behind the parlor was the dining room, and there was always a dumb waiter. What you call a dumb waiter. What does that mean to you? Well, in these houses, they very often had a kitchen in the basement, and there was help who did the meals. The family didn't do the meals. And a dumb waiter was a tray, a wooden tray, and it had ropes attached to it. And you'd go the ropes, and then the dumb waiter would go up to the dining room, and then the help would serve the people, the owners of the house, from the dumb waiter. And they always had back staircases. There was the front staircase, but then there was always a back staircase. Isn't that fun? What else, dear?
Hazel Clark.
I didn't hear you.
Hazel Clark.
Oh, Hazel Clark. You remember Hazel Clark and Anthony, Miss Anthony's friend at Glasgow High School? And she used to even come into Hazel Clark's classroom in the middle of classes. They thought that was all right to visit. And anyway, they were close friends, and she was the music director, and she would get the voices to do the Handel's oratorio, Messiah. Well, this house where we lived was owned by the Steiger family, and the Steiger family owned the successful 5-story department store in Springfield. Very wealthy people and a very wealthy store. And they bought this house because it had a 3-bay garage and a second story. And they lived up on the hill, and it was so rich up there that there weren't any garages. So they bought this house just to have the garage. And Mr. Steiger, Chauncey Steiger, would come home from work around 5 o'clock from the department store, from being the owner, and he would put his car in the garage. And he was always very cordial, very friendly, and very nice. And Robinia Anthony, could you believe this, after all the D and the English? She lived right across the driveway from me. There was an apartment house, and she lived on the 3rd floor on this side of the apartment house. And her window looked right down on our back porch into our backyard. What a coincidence. Well, Hazel Clark turned out to be the music teacher for Mr. Steiger's son, piano teacher, and they ended up getting married, Chauncey Steiger and Hazel. So she made out very well. And as soon as she married him, they built a house in Long Meadow, the rich part of the area. So she did all right, didn't she? And she would go through our yard, too, to get the cars. And then what happened there?
Mulberry Street.
Mulberry Street. You remember Dr. Seuss? What's his name?
Theodore
Geisel.
Theodore Geisel.
Theodore Geisel, did you say?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Thank you for being so smart, my helper. Guess what? His daddy, Theodore Geisel Jr., Sr., was the Parks Commissioner for the city of Springfield, Massachusetts. And my friend, I'll tell you about him later, was a newspaper reporter on the Springfield Union newspaper, and my friend was given the beat to cover the parks, and my friend would go to see Theodore Geisel to get the news every week about the Parks Department. And Theodore Geisel Jr. went to classical high school. He was about 8 or 9 years behind me. He ended up in California someplace. Anything else to tell the folks?
To Boston, sweethearts, and fancy hotel.
You remember I told you that at the Equinox House, a very high class, in those days it cost $25 a day, that Bobby Clark, the Broadway comedian, who was a great favorite of all the critics, they may pan the show, but they always loved Bobby Clark. Well, do you remember Lucette said, when Bobby opens in Boston in Sweethearts, Victor Herbert's Sweethearts, I'm going to invite you to Boston to see the show. Front row. Well, she did. And Ed Henry took me there. And then after the show, we met in the Ritz-Carlton, very expensive hotel in Boston. And we had a private dining room. And Lucette and Ed Henry and Glendora sat together waiting for Bobby to get off of his makeup and his costume. And Bobby Clark, even though he was a comedian, he always dressed in sartorial splendor. He always looked nice. And he came. And the waiter came. And Bobby Clark ordered a drink. And Ed Henry ordered a drink. And Lucette ordered a Dubonnet. I didn't know what that was. And then the waiter asked me what I wanted. And I said, I want a Dubonnet. And the waiter says, oh, no, you don't. Because I wasn't 21. In Massachusetts, they really stuck to that rule. Wasn't that a thrill? And it was in the big Boston Theater there, in Copley Square, I believe. And we did have a front seat. What a thrill. And the kindness of those people. You know, little nobodies. Look at what they did for us. Anything else, pal?
That's everything for sophomore year.
Oh, okay. Let's take a break.
Okay.
Let's pause. And now we're at the year 1948. Glendora is a junior in college. Her major is English, and she filled it up so fast, the requirements, that she took the second major, psychology. She's taking 6 courses instead of the required 5. She's 3.7. She is the leader of the class. She is the valedictorian. And we are doing card games for my mother at 316 Union. And I didn't tell you the rest of that show. Upstairs, there was a back stairway and a front stairway. And upstairs, there were 2 rooms joined together with a private sink on that side of the building, and another 2 rooms exactly like it on the other side of the building, and a hallway in between, and then 2 little cubby holes. We called them cracker boxes. They were cute, and they were joined, and they would come up to the back stairway. So when the people of wealth lived in that house, obviously, the servants had those 2 little cubby holes coming up from the back stairway. And then went a stairway all the way up to the 3rd floor. And this house was on a hill. So by the time you got to the 3rd floor, you were really looking down. And up there was a huge room. It was the size of 3 ordinary rooms and 2 other bedrooms and a bathroom. Isn't that a great house? And we lived there 10 years. How I love that house. And what a location. You could walk everywhere from that house. You could go to the schools. You could go to the doctors. You could go to the stores. You could go downtown. We didn't drive a car downtown. We walked downtown. And walked back. And we walked to church. What else was I going to tell them, honey?
So what classes did you take that year?
What was that?
What classes did you take that year? Did you take German?
Yes. Can you think of anything else? German? Philosophy.
In English.
In English. Oh, yes, always English.
And 2 psychology.
And psychology, because that was my major, double major. Mm-hmm. In fact, probably 2 psychology courses. Anyway, it was 6. And the psychology head of the department was Dr. Dorothy Spurl, spelled S-Sam P. Paul O-E-R-L. And she was a Unitarian minister. Now in Massachusetts, Boston, Unitarianism and Universalism are very thrifty, very healthy. It's very popular there. And she was a Unitarian minister. And guess what? Her husband, Dr. Howard Spurl, was also a Unitarian minister. And he taught philosophy. Well, that was good, taking philosophy. I took everything of any interest, classic, what's called the liberal arts education. I took practically every course they had and trained them. And then what happened, honey? Oh, and we're still playing card games with my mother, Canasta.
And you worked as an assistant at the psychology department?
Yeah. Dr. Dorothy Spurl was impressed by Glendora. She should have been a better psychologist, right? And she asked me to be her assistant. Myself and a young man was the second assistant. And we went to their house for dinner, to the house of Dr. Spurl, of the 2 Dr. Spurls.
Is that Ralph and Dorothy?
Ralph and Dorothy,
yeah.
My brother, who was 9 years older than I, and his wife, Dorothy, lived with us, and I liked that. Always liked having Ralph around. And he was working for Standard Brands, and I'm sure you've heard of some of their products: Chase and Sanborn coffee, Blue Bonnet margarine, Fleischmann's yeast. And there were 5 others anyway. There were 8 of them. So it was nice to have them around. And then what happened? Oh, and Christine May was there. And who else, dear?
Your dad's barbershop? Barber Enterprise?
Yeah, my dad. The social frame of these years in 1948 lent itself very handily to my dad, because people, when they got sick, were not being taken care of at their homes any longer. They were sent to things called nursing homes. And my dad got calls from so many nursing home people, men who wanted shaves and who wanted haircuts. So he had quite an enterprise going there, of going to nursing homes and being a barber for those people. Anything else, dear?
Tennis and bicycle?
Yeah, I was never any good at tennis. And a bicycle trip, I wasn't so good at that. But I got to the park and we would play tennis. Then we would bicycle home, and that was really not for me. I have never been a physical active person. I have never done any sports. I'm a sit-down person in a write and things like that, but never physical. Except for that basketball. Remember the basketball? I threw it and it went right through the hoop without even touching it.
Penny candy machines?
Yeah, Dad had a little business, had these, those little penny candy machines. Maybe they don't have them anymore. You'd put in a penny and you'd hold your hand under the spout, and then you'd get about 6 or 7 pieces of candy. Well, we used to count the money for them and roll the pennies into cylinders to take to the bank. We did that for him. And in between playing cards.
Was that gin rummy that you played?
Yeah, my mother just loved cards. My mother was fascinating. As a young girl, she didn't go to high school. She went to something called Academy, Hamden Academy. And you want to know who else went to Hamden Academy? Can you guess, friend? Stephen King.
Oh.
And she learned elocution. She had the most beautiful diction, the most beautiful speech. And she memorized all of these long, long poems, like Hiawatha, Henry Longfellow, Ichigumi, you remember that? The one-horse shay. She knew all of the 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, the one about love. I'm a gangling symbol if you don't have love. And of these three, the most important is love. Well, she knew that by heart. And she knew beautiful, fantastic, poignant poems by heart. Some of them would make me cry. Beautiful, dramatic poems. But she liked to play gin rummy.
Radio club?
Oh, AIC had a radio club. Now here I am. By now, I think the interest in Bob Hope has dropped entirely. And here I am, putting on shows in high school and being the class clown and being a performer. And yet AIC had a radio club and I didn't belong to it. And I should have. I should have. What else, dear?
Franklin Buell in the Springfield Union.
Well, my friend was a year ahead of me and was graduating in the spring of 1950. No. In the spring of 1949. And the college, of course, had a baccalaureate service. Do they have those anymore, folks? A baccalaureate service is a religious service. It's in a church, and it's given by a minister, and it's a blessing for the graduating class. So she went, and she invited me to go, and she introduced me to the reporter. The Springfield Union newspaper sent a reporter up to cover the baccalaureate service. And the name of this reporter was Franklin Buell. More about that reporter later. He was a friend of my friend's brother. My friend had a brother who was also a reporter on the Springfield Union. And so therefore, that's how she knew Franklin Buell, a reporter on the Springfield Union. I'm thinking ahead what I have to tell you about Franklin Buell. Next, honey.
Okay, that's everything from your junior year.
Oh, okay. Can we take a break, folks?
Yes.
How are you doing with this history of the Northeast of the United States in the 1940s, post-World War II? Is there anything of value here for you? This is the fall of 1949. Glendora's a senior in college. She's more interested in doing things with a friend than she is in college because she's taken all of the courses and she's done all those 6 subjects. So this fall, she decided not to do much. She took only 3 courses and she decided to fill up her void in physics and mathematics. So she took a course in physics and she took a course in mathematics. And then she took a course in biology because she wasn't much of a science major. And this was to make up for the deficiency. Well, I didn't like physics and I couldn't follow physics. And I couldn't follow the mathematics. But the mathematics instructor, the student assistant, followed me, and there began quite a long romance that almost consummated in marriage, and I'm glad that it didn't. But he was very good at mathematics. He had a job in the Springfield Armory in ballistics. And it was quite an intense relationship for quite a long time. And then spending the time with his friend, and I just let everything go. That was the dumbest thing that you could have done. I just let everything go. I wasn't interested in college. I wasn't interested in anything but playing and loafing, and the drops. Can you imagine getting a C in college? I think I did. And so I lost the valedictorian. I lost that to a man named John Gaffney, who was a very older man and was very intent on having a college education in a hurry, and he went through it in 3 years. He wasn't a veteran. And then there was Carlos and a few other in that gang. But I just let everything go. And I lost but I came out salutatorian, even with such a bad drop in interest and immaturity. I did come out a salutatorian.
Did you have a double major and 120 credits?
Oh, more than that, honey, like 150 credits.
In the Evans Teaching School?
Yes, my friend got a job teaching 3rd grade in Munson. You know where Munson is? You ever hear of Munson Academy? A very colonial civilization. What else?
Let it go?
Yeah, I let it go.
Yeah.
What did I do that summer? I don't remember. Oh, yes, I do. That's where we're going to end our story for today. What else do you have for notes, dear?
Typewriter?
Yes, I was graduated finally. I was a graduate finally, a Bachelor of Arts, a BA. You know what a BA stands for, right? Bachelor of Arts. You know what a BS stands for. You know what a Master, and an MBA stands for? Masters of Business Administration. MBA stands for More Bad Advice. And I told you what PhD stands for. Pulled Higher and Deeper. So I was the beneficiary of a Bachelor of Arts degree. And my major was English and psychology. Was there anything else to tell the folks?
Contract bridge.
Contract bridge. My brother Gordon, my brother Ralph, got interested in contract bridge and became so enthusiastic about it. How he loved it. And he used myself and my mother and his wife as players so he could practice contract bridge, and he tried to teach it to us. And indeed, it is fascinating. But there's better things to do in the world. And I had homework to do, but I didn't do it because I had to help my brother learn contract bridge. And he built an airplane, a model airplane, with balsam wood, and glue. And he was always interested in being a pilot. And he was a pilot. And he was in the war as a glider pilot, but not very long. He left early in his service.
Edwin and Florence?
Now, Edwin and Florence, like Glendora, and they like Crawford. And we used to go to their house to see them because they were so cordial and so sociable. And Edwin and Florence had a sister named Dorothy, and Dorothy had a daughter named Dorothy Ann and a son named Tristram and a husband named Tristram. And Dorothy was very talented, very pretty, very nice figure. And all she did was stay home and take care of their mother. And she didn't go to college, although she was brilliant. And she was quite educated on her own, classical education, liberal arts. So Edwin and Florence Smith, my high school English teacher, asked us to invite Dorothy Ann to something, to give her some kind of friendship and meet new people and go to places. So I had another friend at Mount Holyoke, and she invited me to a lecture at Mount Holyoke. I didn't tell you this academic picture in Springfield, Massachusetts. Classical high school, everybody went to college. And where did they go? To Smith and Mount Holyoke and Wellesley and Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Columbia. I do think I told you this. And but little Glennie stayed home and went to American International College. So my friend invited us to Mount Holyoke to a lecture. And the three of us, Dorothy Ann and Fitzgerald, and Glendora, we went to this lecture. And we stayed over and talked to people. And when we came to get our car in the parking lot was all locked up. And here it is, 10 o'clock at night, and we can't get to our car. Well, we thought that was very funny. We thought that was very entertaining. And so did Edwin and Florence, but we got Dorothy Ann home again. What else was there? Oh, and Edwin's mother and dad were very wealthy. They were from where Dartmouth College is, Hanover, New Hampshire. And his dad had a candy store. He was a candy maker in White River Junction, Vermont. And he was very successful and very wealthy. And they had bought a summer home, this old Victorian house up on Old Orchard Beach, when Old Orchard Beach was very fashionable. And it had turrets, and it had maybe 16 or 17, maybe even 20 rooms with servants' quarters and all those things. And it was right on the beach of Old Orchard, right in the sand. And next door to them was a man who was on the radio. And that man was pretty famous. His name was Fred Allen. And he had a very famous wife named Portland Hoffa. And so we would sit side by side with Fred Allen on the beach of Old Orchard every summer.
Cambridge?
Oh, Dorothy and her mother and her dad took an apartment in Cambridge, right next to Harvard Yard. That's how close I got to Harvard. And Dorothy's brother Tristram was educated at St. John's down around Annapolis, a very special school. And Tristram Jr. was a great fan of Anita O'Day. Do you remember Anita O'Day?
No.
Well, she was a jazz singer who was very highly regarded. And he would stay up all night singing Anita O'Day songs. Anything else, dear?
That's all I've got for that year.
Really, is that all for that year?
Yes.
Well, my friend and I that I told you about, who became the teacher, that summer, together, we got jobs as a car hop. Now, car hop was a California idea. The cars would drive up to the restaurant. The cars was parked. The people would stay in their cars. They would order what they wanted, and the waiters would have a tray that hooked onto the car door. And it became quite fashionable. And these enterprising people ran it, and we became car hops there. And we earned quite a bit of money. What a grand climax for a college career, right? To become a car hop. We're going to leave it there. And then the next trip is very exciting and very different. And you will be surprised by it. What happened in the summer of 1950? Anno Domini.